Hi, welcome back to my statistics class. Today we're going to talk about observational studies and experience. So we have three types of studies and experience. One is called anecdotal evidence. The second type is observational study. Under the observational study, we have retrospective and the perspective. And the third type is randomized experience. Okay, so what is anecdotal evidence? So a single or a small number of results, often unusual cases that are not representative of the population. So for example, I met two students who took more than 10 years to graduate from SPSCC. So I can say it must took longer time to graduate from SPSCC than other community college. So you see, this is anecdotal evidence. So it has to satisfy two conditions. Not two conditions. The data only represent small amount of cases, one or two cases. The second could be it's unclear whether these cases are actually represent the whole population. Okay, so now what is observational study? So in an observational study, researchers gather data without interacting with the subjects. So retrospective one means you connect the data after the event have taken places. For example, researchers may review the past medical records of some individuals. Okay, so what is prospective observational study? So that is when you try to identify some individuals and connect information from them as the event unfolds. So for example, a researcher might identify and follow a group of similar individuals over many years to assess their health. These are called prospective observational studies. Okay, so what is randomized experience? So randomized experience is in a controlled but randomized experience. Researcher will assign treatment to groups of subjects and measure the response variable. So in an experience or process for which outcome can be predicted with certainty. So this is an experience or process for which outcome can be predicted. With certainty. Okay, so now take a look. Let's try to match the description of the purple term. A group of disabled women aged 65 and older are checked for several years, ending in 2010. Those who are taking vitamin B12 deficiency were found to be twice as likely to suffer severe depression as those who did not. So let's find out the keywords. Okay, They were trying to track for several years, ending in 2010. That means this is a event they're trying to connect. They're trying to connect the information as the event unfolds, right? So should be a perspective observational study. That's the keyword you've been tracking. Ongoing. This event has been ongoing for several years. So this is number 2. Okay. B. Researchers want to investigate whether taking aspirin regularly reduces the risk of heart attack. 400 people identified as men are divided randomly into 2 groups. So look, randomly, and they were divided into 2 groups. These 2 are the keywords. One group will take an aspirin, the other group will take in placebo. At the end of study, researchers count the number of men in each group who had heart attack. So these are experiments, right? Once we pick it, we just cross it. Because experiment says that in a control, randomized experience, researchers assign treatment to groups of the subjects. So look, they divide the subject, which is the men, 400 men, into 2 groups. Okay, C states researchers who examine healthy record of thousands of men find that men who died of, I don't know how to read it, myocardial infarctions, anyway, just heart attack, tend to be shorter than the men who did not. So we don't care whether the result is true. Okay, that sounds a little bit bizarre. We don't care about the result. We just want to study what kind of experience this is taken. Okay, so the researchers who examine health record, right? They examine the past record. That means what? They connect the data after the event have taken place. So this should be a retrospect observational study. Okay, D, well, now we can just say, hey, C is the enumerated option for D, so must be anecdotal evidence. I don't need to read it. You can do that. We still need to read it. We're mathematicians. We want to be precise. We want to be accurate. So a doctor worked with 2 patients whose depression and the cure with vitamin B12 injection. So look, he just worked with 2 patients. The sample size is not big enough to represent the whole population. So this is the anecdotal evidence. Okay. So now let's take a look. Oh, sorry, it's here. So it says, in part C above, is it correct to conclude that the shorter men are higher risk of dying from a heart attack? Does it sound right to you? No, right? So no, this is incorrect. We can just conclude that the shorter men are higher risk of dying from heart attack. So can there be a lurking or confounding variable? First of all, what is lurking and confounding variable? So confounding variable means something we are not accounting for. Oh, sorry. So what is a lurking variable? So a lurking variable means they can falsely identify a strong relationship between the variable, or it can be hide the true relationship. So these are lurking variables. So now let's take a look. So does it say the higher risk of the shorter men have a higher risk of dying from a heart attack? So we know that couldn't be that couldn't be true, right? So there's a really classic statistic theory about let me change the color. Correlation doesn't mean causation. So let me give you an example. So we can say, hey, the higher ice cream consumption is associated higher probability of sunburn. Okay, by observation, maybe that could be true. But however, if you think about it, is that really the higher ice cream consumption related to the higher probability of sunburn? No, because there's a confounding variable that we are missing, which is the hot temperature. So usually the higher ice cream consumption is due to the hotter temperature, right? And also, in the hotter temperature, people will tend to get sunburn. So these are the confounding hotter temperature are considered the confounding variable. Okay. So now let's look at F. I'm going to erase these. F says, in which of the above situation can be inferred causation and why? So definitely 4 is, we're looking for which one can infer causation and why. So definitely we're looking for experience. Look at B. So research want to investigate whether taking aspirin regularly reduce the risk of the heart attack. So we can predict the outcome, right? And what they do is they divide 400 people into 2 groups. One is taking the aspirin. The other group is taking the placebo, which indicate that this is a really well-designed experience because the individual are randomly picked, randomly selected, and they randomly assigned into 2 groups. And one group is taking the aspirin, which is, we call it the treatment group. In the other group, they only take placebo, we call it control group. So in this well-designed experience, we can take into account that the effect that taking aspirin regularly will have effect to preventing heart attack, so that we can draw a meaningful conclusion. So that's why B, this experience, is we can infer a causation. So let me know if you have any other questions.